Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Before I decided what today's video was going to be about, I had to sit back and think about it because I really wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. I knew it was going to be college football related, and I know I've already told you guys that this Wednesday's top 10 countdown is going to be about college football. And I've also been asked if I would give my opinion of who I think are the current 10 best teams in the country as we head into the 2021 season. I guess you could call it the Ref Brandon Top 10. So I'm going to try to do that also at some point this week because everybody may not know it or not, but college football starts on August the 28th, which now that it's Sunday, that is a little less than 6 weeks away. Now there's only 5 or 6 games that week, and it's none of the major teams playing, but still college football is less than 6 weeks away. So I'm trying to get in all the preseason stuff before the season starts. So when I was asked if I would give my opinion of who the top 10 teams are, I said, yeah, I'll do it, and I'm going to try to do it one day later on this week. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to go ahead and give my opinion of who I think is going to win the Clemson and Georgia game, because otherwise, if I give my top 10, then I'll be giving away who I think is going to win that game. So I'm going to have to do that first. So today's video is going to be my short preview of the Clemson-Georgia game and who I think is going to win. But before I get into that, I'm going to go ahead and give you my dad joke of the day so we can go ahead and get down to business. Where do you take someone who has been injured in a peekaboo accident? To the ICU. And now we'll go ahead, since our dad joke of the day is done, and talk about the Clemson and Georgia game. I know I have talked about this a few times already here on the channel, and I've talked about how I'm struggling to pick a winner, and I really am. As a matter of fact, just this past Thursday at work, after I clocked out from work, me and a friend of mine were talking about the game, and then I was talking about it yesterday with some friends from church. And honestly, really, truly, I am struggling and having a hard time to pick a winner. And the reason is, I believe firmly that both teams have the same strong points and both teams have the same weaknesses. So neither team has a really good strong point that's going against the opposing team's really weak point to give either team a clear advantage. Last year, Clemson's offensive line was really good in pass protection. I think they were 11th in the country in sacks allowed, but their run blocking was terrible. Travis Etienne's career rushing yards per carry was around 7.5. Last year, he was just a skosh above 5. Last year's backup, who will go into this season as the starter, Lynn-J. Dixon, averaged almost 8 yards a carry for his career going into last year. Last year, he averaged 4.5. So that tells you how pitiful Clemson's offensive line was last year in run block, but they were really good in pass block. Now, their best lineman was supposed to be Jackson Carman, and the reason why I say supposed to be is because I never thought he was as good as advertised. But, of course, he's gone now. He's gone to the NFL. I do think Clemson's offensive line is going to be improved this year, but I think that Georgia's defensive line is better than Clemson's offensive line. But on the other side of the ball, Clemson's defensive line is going to be just as good, if not better, this year than it was back when they had Austin Bryant and Dexter Lawrence and the guys they call the Power Rangers. So I think Clemson's defensive line is going to be better than Georgia's offensive line. So on both sides of the ball in the trenches, I think both teams' defensive line is going to be better than both teams' offensive line. The run game, I think, is going to be pretty equal on both sides of the ball. Now, secondary, I think Clemson's secondary is going to be worse than Georgia's receivers. But I also think that Georgia's secondary is going to be worse than Clemson's receivers. So I think on both sides of the ball, the receiving corps is going to be better than the defensive backs. So I think both sides of the ball is going to be pretty even. Special teams wise, I think both teams have a great kicker. B.T. Potter for Clemson and Jack Posluszny, or however you say his name, for Georgia, are both phenomenal kickers. So I think on both sides of the ball, the special teams is great. And on both sides of the ball, both teams' defensive line is going to be better than the other team's offensive line. And I think both teams' receivers are going to be better than both teams' secondary. So I think there's not one position on either side of the ball where one team is going to be way better than the other team. So I don't think there's going to be a strong point against a weakness on either side of the ball. And in games like that, where both teams are pretty evenly matched, they always say go with the better coaching staff. And if it's going to come down to coaching, then I'm going to pick Dabo, because Kirby Smart's proven time and time again that he's a phenomenal recruiter, but he just can't coach. He's an even better recruiter than Mark Richt was, but he's a worse coach. Mark Richt could coach until it came down to the last 5 minutes. In the last 5 minutes, Mark Richt fell apart. He just could not coach against the clock with the game on the line. But outside of that, Mark Richt could coach. Kirby Smart just flat out can't coach. Now, I know Kirby Smart has said time and time again this offseason that they're finally going to open up the offense this year and they're finally going to run the spread. But he says that every year, and it doesn't happen. Just like Will Muschamp. If you follow Will Muschamp, who, by the way, is now on the Georgia coaching staff, why Kirby Smart was stupid enough and dumb enough to put Will Muschamp on his coaching staff, I have no earthly idea. But Will Muschamp, every year he coached at Florida and every year he coached at South Carolina, he would change offensive coordinators, because every year he would say, I'm going to allow the coordinator to call his game. We're going to run the spread this year. And every single year, it was the same pitiful, pathetic, atrocious Will Muschamp offense. And if you follow Georgia, since Kirby Smart's been there, then you know a couple years back, James Coley, who I will say I was not a big fan of, but at the same time, he said he came to Georgia because he was told by Kirby Smart they would run the spread. Didn't happen. Justin Fields said he came to Georgia because he was told they'd run the spread. Didn't happen. So Kirby Smart can say all he wants to that they're going to run the spread. But until I see it, I don't believe it. I don't care what he says, and I don't care how good they talk about Todd Monken, because just last year, you can go back to last year, and they played Mississippi State, which we all know that Mike Leach is allergic to playing defense. But when they played Mississippi State, J.T. Daniels had 420-something passing yards in his very first start. And then the very next week, they played South Carolina, who was absolutely pitiful, and they came out and basically just ran their old offense and ran the ball almost every single play. And you know that was a Kirby Smart decision. Todd Monken has always liked to run the spread, so you know that game plan was 100% Kirby Smart. So if he did that just last year on a game-by-game basis, then I don't believe he's all of a sudden changed in one offseason. Now, if they do, and they come out and they run the spread from their first drive to their last drive, then I think they have the ability to beat Clemson. I really do. But until Kirby Smart shows me that he'll run that and let his offensive coordinator make the decisions and do it all the time, I don't believe it. He's shown me too many times that what he says and what he does are nowhere near the same thing. Because I firmly believe that when Georgia plays Clemson, if Georgia gets the ball first and JT Daniels throws an interception, then the very next time Georgia gets the ball, they're going to line up and they're going to run and they're going to run and they're going to run and they're going to run. And if that don't work, they'll run some more. Or if Georgia by some chance gets a 10 to 14 point lead, what are they going to do? They're going to line up and they're going to run the ball and they're going to run the ball and they're going to run the ball. And that's what they'll do. And you cannot be successful and win championships when you cannot have an identity on offense. And they cannot and they will not have an identity on offense until Kirby Smart shuts up, sets back, and lets his coordinators call the plays. And he's not done it yet, so I'm not one of those people that's going to say this year's going to be different. They're going to have to show me this year's going to be different until I believe this year's going to be different. Until they show me, I think it's going to be the same old Georgia. So for that reason, I think Clemson's going to win, but I don't think it's going to be no blowout. If I had to give my score right now, I say it's going to be 38-28. I think it's going to be Clemson 31, Georgia 28 until late in the game. And I believe Georgia's either going to throw an interception or they're going to fumble and Clemson's going to recover it or make the interception and score and win the game 38-28. So I think even though the game is going to be close in the fourth quarter, I think Clemson's going to win by 10, but 10 points is still a really, really, really close game. Now, I haven't checked the point spread since I think it was Wednesday, but on Wednesday, Clemson was still favored by 3.5 to 4 points, depending on exactly what website and what betting odds you look at. But 3.5 to 4 points is close, and that's the way I feel like it's going to be. Like I said, until the fourth quarter, when I think Georgia's either going to throw a pick or fumble, and I think Clemson will get it, and they'll score and win the game 38-28. So that's my final prediction. Clemson 38, Georgia 28. But if you follow the channel, you know, I believe it was last week, I made a video and posted a video about how I think both teams are going to make the playoffs. I still feel that way because I feel like this is Georgia's year to beat Alabama. So if Clemson and Georgia do make the playoffs, which is what I think will happen, then honestly, really, truly, what you want, no matter who wins the Clemson-Georgia game, is a good game. So that if both teams make the playoffs and if they play again in the playoffs, you hope you get a game that was just as good as the game in the regular season. But I do feel like this is Georgia's year to beat Alabama, and if they do and they go 12-1 and their only loss is to Clemson, then they'll make the playoffs. But now if Georgia does what Georgia does almost every year and has a game somewhere where they lose to South Carolina or Missouri or Tennessee or somewhere like that, then no, they won't make the playoffs. But I believe that even though Kirby Smart is a pathetic, just a terrible, terrible football coach, I believe Georgia's talent is good enough to cover up his idiocy as a football coach. So I do think Georgia goes 12-1 with their only loss being to Clemson. And if that's true, then they'll be in the playoffs. And if both teams play again, and if the first game in the regular season is as close as I think it is, then we can just hope that in the playoffs the game will be just as good. So my final prediction is Clemson 38, Georgia 28. Now, I know I've got a lot of Georgia friends, so I know they're going to watch this video and give me their thoughts, which is why I put this video off as long as I could, because there's just so much that can happen, and there's still a lot that can happen between now and the 4th of September. If you don't follow Clemson, then you may not know that their backup quarterback, Tyson Pumachun, actually got badly hurt in the spring game, and he's out for the season. So Clemson's backup quarterback is walk-on Hunter Helms. So let's just hope that DJ Uiagalelei can actually stay healthy, because there's nobody with really any experience at all behind him. And their third string quarterback is a guy by the name of Will Taylor, who a lot of people thought was going to bypass Clemson and go straight to Major League Baseball, but he decided to come to Clemson, and he's going to play baseball and he's going to play football. And while we're talking about college football, I'll go ahead and throw this out there for all the Georgia fans in case they have not heard yet. Tennessee, supposedly their starting quarterback is going to be Virginia Tech transfer Hendon Hooker, in which, in all actuality, I'm actually surprised by that, only because there was so much talk ever since last season about how good Harrison Bailey is going to be and was going to be. And, of course, he did start last year's season finale against Florida. He was okay, nothing to write home about. But at the same time, Tennessee was so terrible that you really didn't know, was it him or was it just the team? But, of course, he's from the Atlanta area, so a lot of folks in this area want him to be, successful. But all the articles all offseason have talked about how bad he's struggling. And if you follow Josh Heupel at all, you know he runs the fastest offense you'll ever see. They'll run between 95 and 100 plays every game. And he expects his quarterbacks to be able to be mobile and run a lot. And Hendon Hooker is a lot better running quarterback than Harrison Bailey. But a lot of people thought, since Harrison Bailey was there last year, that he would get the nod. But it does look like it's going to be Hendon Hooker. Now, of course, they got Brian Maurer, who is entering his third year on campus, been on campus since 2019, but he's always been a backup, so nobody thought it would be him. And they also have Michigan transfer Joe Milton, that is now a quarterback on the roster, but it looks like former Virginia Tech quarterback who transferred to Tennessee, Hendon Hooker, will be their quarterback at least for their season opener on the 2nd of September when they face the Falcons of Bowling Green. And, of course, they'll go from there. I just wanted all Georgia fans to know that in case you have not heard, since one of Georgia's biggest rivals is Tennessee, and we were discussing college football. I thought I would just go ahead and put that out there to see if any Georgia fans have any comments on that, because I personally thought Harrison Bailey would be their quarterback, at least to start and to see how good he was. But apparently, according to everybody that follows them, it's going to be Hendon Hooker. So once again, my prediction for Clemson and Georgia is Clemson 38, Georgia 28. What say you, YouTube and Nation? Let me know your thoughts and comments about the game and who you think will win and what the score will be. And like I said, I plan on hopefully one day this week, but if not this week, next week, getting on here and giving the Ref Brandon top 10 as we head into the college football season. And don't forget, this week's Wednesday top 10 countdown will also be college football related. Until tomorrow, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.